Joker, Folie, Deux is directed by Todd Phillips and is the sequel to the largely successful Joker from 2019. Set 2 years after the events of Joker, Arthur Fleck is now in Arkham, awaiting his trial for the murder of 5 people. There, he meets Lee Quinzel, played by Lady Gaga, and they fall in love. So I'm sure you guys have all heard, this film has been incredibly polarizing. People calling it a legitimately awful movie, others saying it's undeserving of that. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, I was disappointed by this. I kind of went in with leveled expectations because I had heard such bad things, but that's kind of how it was with the first film too. Even though the first film has a well-praised reputation, mostly, it definitely had its vocal critics. In my opinion though, I really do love the first film. I rewatched it the other night. I do think it's a great film and one that I think is more complex and more nuanced than some people think it is. I do think it has something to say. I do think there is valid commentary in it, and it's just a great movie in my opinion. This film, on the other hand, is definitely a mixed bag. I think there are positive aspects, but at the end of the day, I was pretty let down by this. So let's start with the positives. Once again, this is a really good looking film. The cinematography and lighting are amazing, and the production design really immerses you into the world. I love the era accurate depiction of this time, even though it's a fictional city, but Gotham here feels like a character itself within this world. The art decoration is fantastic, the costuming is great, and the makeup and hairstyling is also really good. Performances are also great in this film. Joaquin Phoenix proves again that he is a very talented actor. He gives a brilliant performance as Joker. Maybe not up to the par of the first film, but he was going for a very different approach with this character now. I mean, it's been 2 years since the events. He's on good behavior, so he has changed a little bit. And so it's interesting how Joaquin Phoenix approached playing the character a little different. And then when Harley Quinn comes in the picture, then she kind of brings out those bad habits again. And so he falls back into the Joker that we discovered in the first film. Lady Gaga is also really good in this, and I wish she had been utilized a bit more, but her scenes are really good, her performance is really good, and she really shines in the musical numbers, of course. All of the supporting cast is great as well. We have some returning actors from the first film, and then we have Brendan Gleeson, Catherine Keener, and Steve Coogan in a brief role, who all give really great, solid performances in this as well. Really like them, especially Gleeson. He is a very interesting character. He has a very interesting relationship with Arthur at Arkham, and I really liked his performance, even though he was kind of a bad person. The score is once again pretty good, though I do wish they'd utilized the main theme of Joker a bit more in this. And I did really like the first act of this film. I thought it set up everything in a very interesting, compelling way. It's where the film goes from then that kind of loses me. I think the biggest issue with Joker 2 is undoubtedly its script. This is just a boring movie, and it's nowhere near as engaging or as compelling as the first film. After a really solid setup in that first act, we get to a middle section that feels very uneven. We have the fantasy musical numbers that take up a lot of runtime, and then we have the trial, which takes up a bulk of the runtime as well. The film kind of turns into a courtroom drama, bouncing between fantasy musical numbers. And if you think that's weird, then it is, and it doesn't always work. The musical numbers were definitely the draw and the most skeptical aspect of this film, I think, for everyone who was interested in seeing it. It's definitely a bold and unique creative choice, which I respect. I mean, Joker itself was a pretty bold superhero film when it came out, but the musical numbers don't always work here. Tonally, they just didn't entirely work for me, and they do become repetitive. There are a lot of musical numbers in here, and it's not like the music is bad, it's not like they're shot poorly, they're not the most energetic or anything, but I don't think they need to be, not for this film, but they do feel out of place in a way that kind of distracts from the overall movie experience. And like I said, there are a lot of them, and they do become a little tedious after a while, especially with the pacing. The pace of this movie, that middle section is just so boring. And it's unfortunate because the plot is equally as uninteresting, and that's what makes the pacing all the worse. This is a film that doesn't really feel like it has a ton going on in it, yet it feels like runtime wise that there is a ton happening. I mean, this was almost 20 minutes longer than the first film, and it really didn't need to be. The film just kind of stalls in that middle section. We're bouncing between the fantasy musical numbers and the trial. And then in the midst of that, we're trying to understand Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship, yet that was one of the most disappointing aspects. As good as the two performances are here, their relationship feels extremely rushed and like it kind of happens out of nowhere. Now, there are certain motivations behind certain characters in this, which I won't spoil, but they are manipulative in a way that makes sense why they're moving so quickly. That being said, I still would have liked more of an exploration and a deep dive into the relationship because we don't really get a lot, which was disappointing, especially for such an iconic couple. And it's unfortunate that the courtroom drama is equally as uncompelling because I love a good courtroom drama. And this just didn't have that umph or draw to really keep you invested. When the finale finally comes around, it does have some of the film's most memorable and interesting moments. I did really like what happened right at the end of the trial. That was entertaining, it was unexpected, and it did add some intrigue to it. When we get around to the ending, I also appreciated what happened. I felt like all the missed opportunities of the rest of the film to say something or be provocative in some sort of way, this made up for it. The ending definitely has something to say in its actions, and though it does feel maybe a bit lacking because of that dull midsection, I still respect it. It's certainly not a bad ending. I liked it. I just felt like it didn't leave the impact I think the filmmakers wanted it to have because that middle section was pretty boring. So overall, Joker 2 is a disappointment. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's like a bad, awful mess of a movie, but it's definitely not good, and it's nowhere near the highs of that first film. It definitely has its moments. I think the beginning and ending are its strongest aspects, the first act and the finale. Everything in the middle definitely leaves something to be desired, whether it be the Harley Quinn Joker relationship, the courtroom procedural, or the musical numbers. All three of those aspects definitely weigh the film down and affect the pacing, affect the feeling of length, and tonally it's not always the most consistent. Performances are great, however, and the visuals of the film are fantastic. I really like the look of this movie, and the technical aspects are definitely impressive. The writing, however, is what really brings this film down, and it's unfortunate because it definitely had potential, and the uniqueness of the film's framing of its plot definitely could have been a positive. Unfortunately, it's not here, and the film just left me underwhelmed. So those are my thoughts on Joker Folie Deux. Have you guys seen it? What did you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think is better? Do you like the first film or do you like this one? I know there are some people who enjoy this movie more than the first one. Let me know in the comments. So if you guys enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next movie review.